You. Welcome, guys. Kevin,
All right.
I'm going to
Well,
turn it over to you. Let you
yeah.
drive this thing.
Welcome, everybody. Kevin Barrett from True North Professional Development. We are here today to talk about branding. And this is going to be part one of two. We're going to do another one after the first of the year. Laura, I want to talk to you about that a little bit. And so I'm going to share with you today some information about my business and kind of how I have worked on my brand, but it is not exhaustive. But I've got some just really great stuff to talk about just in terms of things that you need to think about. For the first part of this, we are going to do a little bit of an activity. So I'm going to ask you to chime in either via chat or microphone on a couple of different things here. So let's get started. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction. I'll talk a little bit about my business and my journey in terms of my brand. Then we'll do that activity. We're going to talk a little bit about first impressions and the importance of those. And I'll have a resource to share with you a little bit later regarding that as well. We'll dig into what is a brand, understanding your brand identity, designing your brand, and then promoting your brand, managing your brand, and then some final reminders. And we are talking about today being able to kind of set up both a personal and a professional brand and how those interlock with one another, and just all the stuff you need to kind of think about when you're thinking about those two things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So a little bit of an introduction. So let's talk a little bit about what is a brand. So it's really perceptions and experiences and values that really define how a person, a product, an organization is recognized and understood by others. And so how can we shape those perceptions? How can we show our values and have people understand what our values are? And how are they going to experience us, right? And so those are important things for us to think about. In addition, it includes visual identity and tone of communication, our emotional connection that we can create, and our reputation, right? And I think for a lot of us, particularly, and we'll talk about the fact that I am an introvert, I think for a lot of us introverts, we run off of that reputation piece more heavily than maybe some of these other things. And so ultimately, it is the promise of what people can expect, distinguishing it from competitors and shaping its overall identity in the marketplace. So this is really about how you can get recognized better, how you can build that emotional connection through the tone of communication, your reputation, all those other things that we talked about as well, to be recognized a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about my brand experience. So from 2003 until about 2016, I developed strong relationships with key professionals across many different industries. I established about 850 LinkedIn connections up to that point, and I built the brand absolutely through reputation building. So it was very much about people seeing the work that I did, the quality of the work that I did. And I didn't do a lot of talking about that. And again, because I'm an introvert. So we'll talk more about that. During this time, I also obtained 2 coaching certifications, but again, didn't make a big deal out of the fact that that was there. I was in the corporate and retail environments during those times. And so a lot of what I did was just apply those coaching certifications to my relationships with people within the organization to help them to be more effective at what they did. In 2017, though, things changed. I founded True North Professional Development and I built a client base. And what I found was that it was a bit challenging to build that client base because a lot of the folks that I was reaching out to didn't know my reputation, right? And I had to find ways to be able to promote myself more effectively, learn how to talk about myself and talk about my business more effectively. During this time, I did expand my LinkedIn connections to about 1,800. I was a lot pickier about who I added. in the early days of LinkedIn was really good at not allowing people to connect to you. But later on, they loosened that a little bit, and lots of people started sending me connections. A lot of them were salespeople that had solutions on how I could be a millionaire as a coach, and that they were going to help me, right? And what I found through kind of trial and error is that a lot of those folks really weren't very helpful to me at all, and they were more interested in making the connection with me because they would get to the other 1,700 people I had in my LinkedIn database, right? So I had to be really careful about kind of vetting who they were, looking for different signs that would suggest to me that perhaps they were going to they're just mining my connections, right? I One thing that I will say that I did really positively was that I adapted very swiftly to the challenges of the pandemic, and Mary can attest to that as well, because that's where these lunch and learns came from, is that during the pandemic, we were like, how can we reach out to people, share our knowledge, share the expertise that we have, and get people interested in us as well. So, and then during this time, I really developed networking skills. I was absolutely terrified of doing any networking, but I just decided at some point that I have to at least try it. So we'll talk more about how I did that and how I tried that a little bit later on. So important at this point to share again that I am an introvert, and I will tell you why. When it comes to branding, extroverts may overshare or be too visible, right? So they might be in people's face a little bit more than people like, right? So careful to balance that. They may prioritize quantity over quality, and that can result in some superficial interactions, right? So as we'll talk about, go deep on relationships more than get the quantity of people that you're meeting. Their enthusiasm and assertiveness might come across as aggressive or inauthentic, right? So that can be a challenge for extroverts. For us introverts, we may struggle to put ourselves out there, right? It's just a lot of work for us to do that. It's a lot of work to talk about ourselves. We don't necessarily like that. Even building connections can feel pretty draining, right? And in addition to that, we tend to kind of downplay our strengths or achievements. And so that can be a bit of a challenge for us. And it's something that we just need to really look at, whether you're an extrovert or you're an introvert. Think about how that extroversion or that introversion plays into the way that you're building your professional or personal um, uh, reputation, right? So how do you go beyond your reputation to build a brand that helps others recognize and understand the value that you bring? This is what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to talk about it in terms of both professionally and personally, and how they kind of interact with each other. All right. So we're going to move into this little activity. And for this, I would love to have you either unmute or go to chat. I'm going to ask you to give me your first impressions of a couple of different things, and then we'll move into a little something different with it. So first thing, I'm going to show you this picture right here. What's the impression that you get? Pop it into chat or give it on the microphone. Yeah, that's good, Margaret. No problem at all.
So I looked at it like he's a private pilot, and
He's what?
he's a he's a private pilot, meaning he's flying a private plane. So he's got to be really good.
Yeah. All right. And Laura put down authoritative, cocky. Yeah, I get that. Absolutely. All right. So we get an impression, right? How about this one here?
I've been in trainings that I want to do that.
I've been in trainings where I'm the trainer and
Oh
get
no.
that. Yeah, bored, not paying attention. Absolutely. right? Stock photo, love it. Love it. All right, how about this one? What do you think?
I'm gonna steal Laura's. That's another stock photo.
Yeah, definitely is.
Fun birthday, cheerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy, fun, cheerful, love it. All right, so the importance of this message is that we make judgments, right, based on what is presented to us. And so when we do this as human beings all day long, right? We look at something, we make a judgment about that person or that thing, right? Or that product that we have. And so if we turn that around and think about, well, people are looking at us, right? We want to be able to put the best picture forward that we can, right? I often think of, when you go on a date, right? You you you're really putting your best foot forward, right? We do that automatically when we go on a date, right? And then it's later that as we get to know people that we loosen up a little bit and maybe they see a different side of us. So I'm not asking or not saying that we should be fake, but we need to kind of think about how we can manage that going forward. All right. All right, let's take a look at a couple of logos here. So anybody know what this logo is?
Pepsi?
Anybody know?
Not
All right.
Pepsi?
Yeah, it looks like Pepsi, doesn't it? So this is Korean Air,
Okay.
but there's Pepsi,
Mhm.
right? So they're very similar to one another, right? If you don't fly Korean Air, you wouldn't know really necessarily that that is Korean Air, right? And so they're similar, but they're different, right? Here's another one. Anyone know this one? Okay, Airbnb, except that it isn't. This was a drive-in, Japanese food drive-in in the 1970s called Azuma, but that is Airbnb, right? So very, very similar. All right, one more here. Anybody know what this one is? Yes, indeed. Trick questions. Exactly. Well, this one is the city of Brühl in Germany, and it looks very similar to Beats by Dr. Dre, right? So we need to kind of think of how we're presenting ourselves and what's unique, right? And yet what maybe looks like something else. All right. Here's another one. You might be familiar with this one. This is Columbia Sportswear. But take a look at another one that looks just like it. This is Sun Microsystems, right? Very similar type of logo. All right. All right. How about this? What's wrong here? Okay, we all know that Budweiser does not come in a bottle like that, right? Anybody know what that bottle is?
Chanel #5. Yeah.
Right. But it has the Budweiser label on it. So it maybe gets a little confusing. Here's another one. All right. If we look at, we've got Robitussin on the left, we have Jack Daniels on the right. But what if we swap the labels on those? All right. Looks very different, right? Maybe doesn't even meet the expectations that you might have for something like Jack Daniels, right? And actually, my favorite thing on the Robitussin thing is 6-hour relief on the Jack Daniels bottle. All right. So it's all about kind of packaging and how do we put things together? How do we present ourselves, professionally and personally, right? All right. So some things to kind of consider here. What is the picture that you want to present? Is it professionalism, authority, expertise, right? So how do you build that picture of yourself? All right. Think about in what ways you're unique. So what problems can you uniquely solve? And what do you offer that can't be found anywhere else? All right. And then in what ways is the perception of others that others have of you incorrect, right? People have incorrect perceptions of us. So what do people confuse about you? What do they overlook, right? Might take some thought to kind of think about that. And then, of course, we always need to consider our extroversion and our introversion, right? Because it may be challenging for us if we're an introvert to present that picture in the most effective way. We might be very anxious and, almost pushy as an extrovert to get that across, right? And there's some downstream things that come from our behavior, whether we're extroverted or we're introverted. All right. So those are some things to consider. So let's talk a little bit about what is a brand. We've talked about that already, just in terms of what a brand is, but let's look at it from a professional brand versus a personal brand. So a professional brand is really to advance your career and to showcase your value, right? Personal brand is going to be to build trust, authenticity, and a clear identity that reflects you. Now you can see already that those complement each other, right? And they may influence one another as well. From a professional brand standpoint, you're really looking at kind of what's your expertise, what's your skills, what's your reputation, right? How do you establish credibility and influence and recognition in the things that you do, right? So things like your resume, your LinkedIn, your professional accomplishments, networking leadership style, your communication style, all of those go into creating that professional brand for you, right? And then, of course, your target audience here is likely to be your colleagues, potential employers, clients, prospects, business partners, industry peers, right? You're directing that brand more towards those types of folks, all right? But your personal brand, that involves your personality, your values, your lifestyle, your passions, your personal interests. It allows you to express yourself holistically beyond your professional life. And that can include things like your online presence, your personal values, your hobbies, your passions, right? For your personal brand, your target audience is likely more to be your friends, your family, sometimes the general public, right? Or social media followers, or just the broader community. But of course, as I mentioned, those both influence each other, right? So your professional brand relies very heavily on what your personal brand is. Your personal brand can also rely very heavily on what your professional brand is, right? So all of these things are really important to kind of look at broadly in terms of how you present yourself and what is that brand that you provide, both from a professional and from a personal standpoint. So both are important. They do overlap, right? And so how you present yourself personally can influence how you are perceived professionally and vice versa. And maintaining consistency between both can really enhance your overall brand. This is one thing that I found for myself was just really important, is the consistency of doing that. That if I fell off of one or the other and ignored that for a while, that it actually can take a little bit of a toll on what your brand is, right? So important for you to kind of stay engaged in that. All right, let's do a little poll here. We've got a small group, but I'm going to open up a poll. Get to that. All right, 2 questions on this I want to have you answer. So if you will, go ahead and look at the poll and answer those 2 questions. All right. Good deal. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. And let's take a look at the answers. And do I have to? I don't remember if I have to stop my share to do that. Okay. All right. So if we take a look at those, we've got 1 at a 4, 1 at a 7. We've got professional brand and personal brand in there, right? So important for you to kind of take a look at what your where you're at on that, right? And what work do you need to do to be able to build that up, right? So that you have a better brand. All right. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about what goes into all of that. And so let me share again. Oh, goodness. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about understanding your brand identity. So some key things for you to kind of take a look at is defining your mission, vision, and values. What are the things that are important to you, right? We'll dig into that a little bit more. Identifying who your audience is. So who is it that you want to influence with your brand, and then being able to craft your brand story. All right. So when it comes to defining your mission, vision, and values, it's all around what do you stand for and what makes you unique, right? And this takes some reflection to be able to do that. In our leadership development program, we work on this very heavily with people to really get them to understand what is this mission, vision, values. And you've got to take some time to do that. Journaling absolutely helps for you to be able to figure that out. And we don't do that very often, I find. We just kind of move through life and we don't really think necessarily. We kind of know it, but we kind of maybe don't have it formalized. So this is more formalizing that process. All right. So define your mission, vision, and values. Identify your audience. So who are you trying to influence? Is it clients? Is it employers? Is it followers? Is it colleagues? Right. And consider what data you can gather about them. Who are they? Right. What's important to them? How do they communicate? How do they behave? I can give you one example from my career where I did I had a VP that I worked with, and what was very important to him was I actually worked for him. What was very important for him was that we were always within budget, right? He talked about that a lot. It stuck out for me all the time that he would talk about cutting expenses and being within budget. And so when I did presentations or I had one-on-ones or in my performance review, that was a key point that I made sure that I was talking about, right? Because it was important to him. So I wanted to make sure that I was delivering that message. It helped to be able to bring up my brand, right? All right. As a part of this, it is really important to engage in active listening. So paying attention to the feedback, the pain points of that individual, right? And maybe their pain points that I can help solve. And then what are their challenges, their desires, their expectations, right? If you get a better understanding of those people, it is much, much easier to be able to influence them by talking about how you can solve those challenges or meet those desires or those expectations, right? And then lastly, creating audience personas. So creating profiles of who you want to reach, what are their goals, what are their pain points, what are their desires, and then tailoring your message and solutions for each persona. This is particularly useful if you own your own business, right? Knowing who your customer is and what it is you're selling to them, and are you getting the right message? But you can also use this in, if you're in the corporate world or in the working world where you're an employee rather than a business owner. It's important to do that as well, right? And certainly in your personal life as well. So who is your audience and how can you influence those folks, right? All right, and then lastly, you need to take all of that information and really start to craft your brand story. So creating a compelling narrative that reflects your values, your experiences, and your goals. Now, part of this is going to be that you may do some networking as well. So we'll talk in a little bit here about how you can weave that brand story in and make sure that you are getting the points across. Another kind of thing to think about is if you think about a particular brand, let's talk about Apple for a second. If we did a survey from high Apple users, right? These are the kinds of things that we tend to hear, right? Simplicity, elegance, sleek, minimalistic, ease of use, innovative, creative, cutting edge, pushing boundaries, premium, quality, exclusive, sophisticated, status, right? So what words represent you? What are the things that the messages that you want to get across about you and about the work that you do or about the who you are as an individual person, right? Spend some time on that and think about that. And I'll share with you how I have had that come up as well. All right. So important for us to be able to kind of represent and utilize words that are going to describe, right? So we're customizing that to who we're talking to, but we're also making sure that we give the impression through some words that we've chosen. All right. Now, it just so happens that Fortune magazine, oh, actually, before I do that, sorry, I did want to share this. So this is on my LinkedIn profile. So I actually worked with a career counselor years ago. One of the times that I was laid off, several different times throughout my career. And this was one thing that she said to me. We really went through and looked at my LinkedIn profile. And she said, you need some kind of a tagline, right? And so what she suggested to me, and I do suggest this to you as well, is create a tagline. It doesn't have to be on your LinkedIn profile, but here's what you do. You describe yourself in 12 words or less. And then you put that in a sentence or small phrases. Now you can see on my LinkedIn profile, I've chosen to do it with 2-word phrases, right? But whichever way it works for you. All right. And then test drive it in your mind. So really think it over and decide, does this describe me? And keep in mind also that you want it to be a bit aspirational, right? And so the last piece of advice I'd give to you on this is use it as a North Star. This is something that I go back to at least once a week and I go, okay, am I doing this? Am I meeting this? This is kind of my brand promise that I'm putting out to people, right? That I'm a knowledge warrior, wisdom purveyor, thought provoker, perception changer, trusted advisor, and collaborative peer. Am I doing that, right? It's a way for me to be able to check in with myself to say, yeah, I'm living up to the brand that I am putting out there, right? So this is very useful. And again, there is a spot on your LinkedIn profile for that as well. It's a little description box that's there that only allows a certain number of characters, but this is a great way to be able to utilize that. And of course, anytime that anybody goes to my LinkedIn profile, that is what they see. All right. Now, we've also done that for my business as well. We really worked on getting a tagline for this. So for True North Professional Development, we guide teams and individuals to accelerated business success. So there were a couple of things in here that were really important for me because of what True North means. So True North is the real way that when you have magnetic north, but you may want to get to true north. What is that true north? Well, that's a difference from magnetic north. Magnetic north points one way, but true north is actually in a different location, right? And so what I wanted to kind of get that idea of that we guide you to make sure that you get to the true north, the thing that you want to get to, right? And then we worked a lot on those last 3 words as well. Accelerated business success, right? How do I get it into a really tight, nice little tagline for my business, right? You can do this as well personally, right? It just takes some playing around with and bounce it off other people, see what they think, right? All right. With that, let's talk a little bit about an article that just happened to come out in Fortune magazine just about a month ago, yeah, about a month ago, I guess. And there were some really good tips in there that I want to share with you. One of them is to monitor your digital exhaust, right? So what do your social media profiles say about you, right? What's posted, all right? And then what does a quick Google or Chat GPT search reveal about you, right? Is it matching up to that brand that you want to project? All right. Here's a good one as well. Fill in the blank. I am the person who is what, does what, right? The more unique, the better. What is it that I do, right? That is unique. All right. Next one, embrace the haters. So don't get stuck on the haters and the naysayers, right? It is important to understand when somebody doesn't like something, right? Or there's something that you're doing that irritates them. Yeah, it's important to know that, but we don't want to get stuck on that, right? We really want to hone what is it we want to present. And so if somebody doesn't like it, maybe it's too bad. In fact, I'll share with you one of my favorite quotes. This is from RuPaul Charles. He says, "What other people say about me is none of my business." Think about that. What other people say about me is none of my business, right? That has been extremely helpful for me along the way over the years because, it allows me to, yes, indeed, Ru is so wise. It allows me to not get stuck in that, right? Listen to what's there, what's that feedback that's coming, right? That's important, but I can't get dragged down into it. I can't, beat myself up over it because sometimes we know better, right? Not always, but if we know what it is we're trying to present, I think it's really important to kind of drive towards that. All right. All right. So let's continue on here. This is again still from Fortune magazine. Stay authentic. And I had a big, huge, long quote here from Brene Brown, but I shortened it up for this one. It is the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen, right? And so every single interaction that we have the opportunity to really show people who we are, right? And as I always say in my coaching with people, what you do and what you say has an impact on people, but often what you don't do and what you don't say also has an impact, right? And so being authentic means that I'm going to present my authentic self, right? And I'm not going back to that thing about the haters and the naysayers. I'm not going to worry if they don't like that, right? I'm going to present myself as I want to present myself, right? All right. And that leads us really well into the last thing that was in this Fortune article, and that was say no to imposter syndrome. So you may be familiar with this. Imposter syndrome is where we believe that someday someone's going to figure out that we are an imposter. We're not as good as we're presenting, right? We're not the smartest person in the world. We're not a fantastic human being, right? And we get caught in that, oh my God, I'm an imposter and they're going to figure me out one of these days, right? I've gotten all these promotions. I've moved through the corporate ladder and all that, and they're still going to find out that I'm just not what I say, right? Very easy to get caught in that imposter syndrome. And so let go of that, right? Say no to the imposter syndrome. All right. So all of those are really, really important pieces here when we think about setting up and understanding what our brand is going to be. All right, so let's talk about, excuse me, designing our brand. So first thing we want to think about is our identity. So what is your quality of work? What is it you bring to the table? What does your work product look like? Colors, fonts, logos, right? That can make an impression on somebody. What does your work product look like, right? What do you say? What are your word choices, your phrasing, your pacing, right? Do you do what you say you're going to do? That is a huge one when you're trying to build an identity or build a reputation, right? Are you actually doing the things that you're saying you're going to do? How do you engage people, right? What are the conversations like? Are you a good listener, right? Yeah, Dr. Seuss, be who you are and say what you mean, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Yeah, I love it. And then do you lead by example, right? Or is it you lead by telling people what to do, but that's not what you do, right? All of those things have a good impact, and keeping in mind that, again, what you do and you say has an influence on people, but what you don't do and what you don't say also has an influence on people. All right. Really important to remember that all of this takes time and all of this takes work. I was in a networking group that I started talking about my business. And what I noticed, we did a presentation about every 6 or 8 weeks, right? About our business. However many people were in the group. So every week somebody else did a different presentation. So it was about maybe 8 or 10 weeks perhaps that I got to do a presentation. And I noticed that people really did not understand what my business was about, right? And so what I started to figure out was, well, I need to kind of think about, is it them not getting it and I have the right messaging, or do I not have the right messaging and that's why they're not getting it, right? And so over time, I was able to really refine that a lot. And fortunately, that group, they were very good at giving feedback as well, right? But it takes time and it takes work. It takes refinement of what it is you want to present, right? And so don't think it's going to happen, overnight. All right. So you work on putting your brand together. Now you got to promote your brand, right? And this is where some of us who are introverts, we shudder, right? Because, oh my God, I don't want to be out there promoting my brand. I didn't find that, taking it passive like that worked for me very well, right? It's hard to build a business when you can't promote yourself and your brand, right? So really think about social media, right? Take care of how you engage on social media. Be aware of privacy settings, right? You can set so that only your friends see your social media posts if that's what you want to do, right? That they're not there publicly. There are stories after stories after stories of people, particularly in younger generations, who are using social media. It is open to everybody. They go for a job interview, and guess what? The HR person or the manager has reviewed their social media beforehand, right? And it's given a negative impression of them. So really be aware of how you come across on social media and whether it's public, right? All right, think about networking and community engagement, right? So who are you networking with? Every time you're meeting somebody new, you're networking, right? And so who is it that you're networking with? Who do you collaborate with in your work environment, right? Who do you work with? And do you go out of your way to make sure that you're working with people that you can collaborate with, right? What community events are you engaged in, right? That helps you build both your personal and perhaps professional. And then what causes are you involved in? So again, for me as an introvert, this was a bit of a challenge, right? Because I didn't necessarily want to put myself out there on these things, but I had to do it. And what I found was, as most introverts find, it gets easier, right, over time. And I'll show you some permissions that I gave to myself as well. All right. All right. Some other things to kind of think about here. If you're networking, to set yourself up for success. When you're meeting people that maybe you don't know, or you're at a party right? Or you're at an event, even a company party, right? Where you've got to introduce yourself to people that you don't know, right? We can get very nervous about that. So here's something that I suggest, and this has worked exceptionally well for me. Create a 1-minute commercial. Who are you? What value do you offer? Right? And then who is your target client or the connection that you want to make, right? Who can that person potentially introduce you to that will help you build your network and help you build your brand? All right. So create that 1-minute commercial, have those elements be a part of that, and then practice, right? There is a different tone and tenor that you get when you write things out than when you speak it, right? And so anytime that you kind of write yourself a script like that, it's really important to kind of take that in and then spit it out in your own words, not necessarily what's written on the page, right? Get comfortable with it, because the more comfortable that you are in these situations, the more credibility that you display. And there are lots of studies about that, and I'll give you the link to a couple of little blog posts that I've got on my website that talk very much about this, right? The more comfortable you are, the more credibility that you display, right? And when we're talking about building our brand, that is really important. What's the credibility that is behind that brand, right? Here's another little tip that I learned. Going longer than a minute at the start is generally a turnoff for people, right? So we've probably all met those people that, hi, you introduce yourself and they introduce themselves and then they talk for the next 7 minutes, right? And you're just like, who else can I meet, right? You want to go and get away. So keep that in mind. If you go longer than about a minute, it generally does start to turn people off, right? And what you want to build is you want to build a conversation. So do your little 1-minute commercial for yourself, and then start asking some questions about them, or give them the opportunity to do it, and then try to create a conversation back and forth. All right. All right. Some other things here. Be intentional with your connections. All right. So what research has shown is, particularly with extroverts will go and meet everybody, right? Like the bee going around, right? Meet everybody, but they don't necessarily go deep on relationships with people, right? And so it is really important that you be intentional with who you want to meet and then really get to know them, right? And it can be more than, no more than just a few minute conversation to get a better understanding of them and whether they, they fit with what you're looking for and how you work, right? And particularly if you're going to regular networking events, I really, really recommend this yeah, thank you, Margaret. Good tip on being intentional, right? Yeah, be intentional with who you're meeting. Who do you want to meet? And in fact, if in your commercial, right, you're asking, you want to include in there, who do you want to get connected to? Who are you looking for to talk to, right? Now, that doesn't mean that the second that Keita tells me that, who she can connect me with, that I will go running away from Keita, right, and go on to that person. That's not what this is about. But really delve in a little bit, because if it's surfacey, we can't really get an understanding, right, of how that can help us and help our brand. All right. And then same thing with introverts, right? Really be intentional with who those connections are, because it's going to be easier on yourself if you do that. All right. Second thing here, listen more than you speak. All right. So ask questions. Develop some questions about what you're trying to get. What kind of information do you want to know, right? People really care about people who listen to them, right? And so the better that you can be as a listener, the more likely they're going to engage with you. All right. And then the last one here, that is provide value first, right? So people really connect with people who are going to help them do something. Oh, really? That's really interesting. hey, I know somebody who does that. Would it be helpful if I connected you to them, right? If we can offer that first, they're going to be much more likely to then offer connections back to us as well. All right. So be intentional with connections, listen more than you speak, and then provide value first. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Some other tips here. If you're going to a networking event, have business cards or other collateral to share, right? That indicate who you are, how people can connect with you. All right. Listening for what they need, right? Really, really important.
Kevin,
Offer,
can I inject there about the business cards?
please.
Don't be one of those people that shove your business card in everybody's face.
Yeah,
It's
I agree with
it's
that.
really hard as an extrovert not to do that. And so what I have learned is if I ask them for a business card and then look at their
Oh, I love it.
information, and then oftentimes they'll ask for mine.
Yeah. So you're talking about those people that are like, that's the first thing, right?
They go right to everybody in the room and hand out business cards.
Yeah. And I love that. Can I offer you my business card? Or, yeah, hey, do you have a business card? I think that's a great way to start, right?
Yeah. Or I'd love to
Listening,
further and
oh yeah,
then get their card.
right. So listen for what they need, right? So be a resource to them. Offer quality introduction to people that can help them succeed. I think those are really important. Here's one that I had a tough time with at the beginning, right? Each month, reconnect with 2 people, one newer connection and one that you've been developing a relationship with. And I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of work to do. Yeah, it is kind of a lot of work, but it could be something quick. It could be a coffee. It could be a quick phone call. It could be an email, right? Or another event. It could be a thank you card. It could be a thank you email that says, hey, thank you for connecting me to that person, right? They were very helpful to me. Just those little things can help, and they tend to keep you in their mind when something comes up, right? That can help you. All right. Don't be afraid to share types of connections you need and ask for introductions, right? I am looking for people who do this, right? Or can help me with this problem, right? All right. So all of those really important for us to do to really help build that networking. All right. All right. One more set of little tips here as far as networking goes. And this is one I kind of learned the hard way. Before you network, give yourself grace, right? Everybody is nervous. I used to think I'm the only nervous one, right? I'm going to this event and there's 150 people there. Oh my God, I'm just super nervous to meet anybody, right? And then I would talk to people that were also nervous, right? So everybody gets nervous at those kinds of events, right? Be genuine and authentic, right? Don't be something that you're not just to be able to try to fit in, right? You're looking for authentic connections with people, and you'll know right away if they are authentic connections. This is one that it took me a while to get to for myself. One of the reasons that I didn't like going to events was I got to meet all these people. And then I said, yeah, Margaret, we will be sending out a recording for that. So plan to meet 2 business people, right? I decided one day, okay, I'm going to this event. There's 100 people there. I'm just terrified that I have to meet all these people. And then I was like, you know what? If I met 2 people today, aren't I ahead of the game? Right? And if I meet even more than that, then I'm even further ahead of the game. So give yourself permission to whatever number it is that you want to meet, right? And the great thing is, oftentimes at these events, people are standing in groups, right? Or they're in a table with groups. And so you've already got a group of people there that you can introduce yourself to, and you get over that too very, very quickly. All right. Here's another one for me. And I use this, I tell this to my coaching clients as well. Anytime we're interacting with people, if you mess up, so what? There's always the next opportunity, right? So you made a fool of yourself today, so what, right? The next opportunity you have, you can improve that. You can be better at it, right? And then, of course, remember that gaining traction takes time. It takes time to build networking. I actually saw a friend of mine post on Facebook about a month ago. Why don't you? Why do you or don't you like to attend networking events? And one person said, I went to a networking event once and I didn't get any sales out of it. And I was like, what? Because that's really not what networking, it's not going to be an instantaneous payoff, right? It's building those relationships with people that is going to do that, right? So it does take time to gain traction. All right. All right. Let's go to the next thing here, and that is managing your brand. So you've done some networking, you're getting out there, you're promoting your brand, right? And let's talk a little bit about managing it, right? So your brand reputation, really important to build long-term trust, whether it's your professional brand or your personal brand, right? People trust you for what you say. People trust you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. That is one of the biggest things that you can do to help build your brand, right? Build emotional intelligence. So the ability to perceive, assess, and manage the emotions of oneself, others, and groups, right? I love this graphic on the right-hand side. Learning to be calm when you are disrespected is a superpower, right? Being able to stay calm, stay assertive, and be in it and still be able to manage with people. Really important. All right, actively engage, right? So sometimes, hey, maybe it's not the best day. Maybe we're down. Maybe we're an introvert and we just don't want to deal today, right? But if you don't actively engage, it's going to be hard for you to manage that brand reputation that you have. And a friend of mine taught me this: find champions. Who are those people that are going to talk about your business or the work that you do, right? Positively, that they're going to be the ones that defend you in situations, right? So who are those champions? Who are those people that you can go out, that you know will go out and fight for you? All right. And then lastly, be adaptable. So keep your brand fresh and relevant while staying true to your core values, right? What are the things that you can do differently maybe than you're doing right now? All right. All of those can really help you to be able to manage your brand reputation. Really important thing, I think, as a message coming out of this today is every interaction you have is an opportunity to promote your brand, right? So anytime that you're engaged with other people, you are presenting your brand. And so if your brand today is gossipy, then that's what your brand is, right? If that's not what you want to present, then you need to think about how you're presenting that brand today, right? You've got every single interaction that can influence what that brand is going to be. All right. All right. Last thing, and I'll share with you a couple of little resources here as well. So building your brand is not a light switch, right? You can't just flip the switch on and your brand is there. It takes time. It takes effort to do it, right? And you're going to have to make tweaks along the way. But what you want to do is be able to present yourself in a way that is consistent, right? And that helps build, when people think of you, this is what they think of, right? And so it's really kind of sculpting all of that. And as we said, promoting it and managing it that is going to help you. It's definitely not a light switch. All right, here's a couple of resources that are available that might be helpful. And I've actually got a note in here to myself that I shouldn't have in here. So there are two blog posts that are on my True North blog under truenorthskills.com/resources. One is the science of first impressions, and it shares with you a lot of research that's been done about giving a really good impression. And then the next one is making a better first impression, again, sharing resources on how you can make a better first impression with anybody. And then lastly, there is a Hidden Brain podcast that I would share with you. It is called You 2.0, Your Future is Now. I can't recommend this enough. There's just some terrific stuff in there to get you to think about who you are and how you can present yourself in a new way. So if you go to Google and search Hidden Brain You 2.0, Your Future is Now, you will find that podcast, and it is very useful. All right. So that is our Building Your Brand for today. We do have a new one that's coming up next month. So this was on Wednesday, December 4th. Mary is going to be taking you through talking about creating your 2025. Mary, do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely. So each year I would go through a process, and we've been doing this for about 20 years here at Soul Canyon, and it's all about connecting to who you are and what you want to do with your new year. We take you through building your own vision board, your pluses and minuses, if you will, of what you've accomplished in the year, where you're headed, where you want to go, and how to stay accountable. So I will share with you some tips and tricks, and we hope to see you then. I'll send out the recording to Kevin this month, and he'll pass it on to you. And then, Kevin, we've got a couple of Excel classes. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I if you have the dates in front of you, I don't have. I should have created a slide for that, but we do have Excel. Is it level
We have
3
Excel level 3 coming up.
coming up?
And that's in November, on November, let me double check this. Nope. No, come on. And then we have, let's see, November 14th, from 1 to 4 is
And then
level
December-
3, and 14th.
Okay, November 14th for the level 2 or level 3, sorry, and
Level
one-
3. And then level 1 is December 12th from 1 to 4.
Good deal.
So even those people who use Excel pick up tips and tricks in level 1. And if you're usually using Excel for any sort of business, you definitely want to get that level 3 class under your belt, because there's some amazing things that you can do with Excel.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you very much today. And when Mary gets the recording, she'll send it out to me, and then I will send it out to anybody in my group. She'll send out to her group. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you got some good things out of today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.